Howdy, I'm Jack Harris, and I'm standing in front of one of Tampa's crown jewels, the beautiful Tampa Theater. And I want to invite you to join me in taking a look at a presentation about a man whom I consider to be one of Tampa's great treasures, Mayor Dick A. Greco. His achievements have been enormous. His political career has spanned 4 decades. He's been elected by the people of Tampa to 4 different terms. Now, it's mighty difficult to try to chronicle a career that has been so illustrious, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to hear from the mayor himself, as well as from some people who've had a bird's eye view. So join us now as we reflect on those years, the Greco years.
This city has been home to me since I've been born. I went to the University of Florida for 1 year, and I used to drive home to get a haircut because it's the only barber I knew until he died. And people were so loyal in every way. You shopped at certain places and you shopped with certain people all of your life, and they knew you and they would call you. And in Ybor City, all the merchants gave each other 10% discount. The other thing is if they had no money, they would give them credit, and they'd come pay whatever they could. Never sued anybody, and they always paid you. They felt an obligation. So I came up in a time when the world was different as a youngster, and today is different another way. We live so much better. We have things that we never dreamed we would have had. Life is easier, and I'm afraid sometimes that we take for granted and don't appreciate like we used to. I like sports. I love hunting, fishing. I love things outdoors. And when I was 14, I started shooting skeet. Well, I can't hear too well today, but I got pretty good at it, and my folks, because I'm an only child of Italian parents, we had a hardware store we could buy shotgun shells, I guess, at a good price in those days, let me travel around the United States, and I won the Nationals when I was 16 years old for juniors, and I was on the All-American team, and I traveled all over the country shooting skeet for 3 years. So I really didn't have time to be political in school. I always loved people. I think what that did for me, though, is taught me to win and lose well. I always did the best that I could, and I was happy with that, whatever the outcome was. And Nick Nucio was my friend, and an extraordinary man when you stop and think about it. He was one of those that wasn't privy to the education that I had and so forth, but what he accomplished without it was incredible. He said to me, I'm not going to run again. And so I took that at face value and thought, well, I'm 33 when this is over. I'm either going to move up or move out. I have to do something. And then he decided to run, but I was already decided to get in it. And actually ran the second time. He really couldn't leave. And I understood that, and I respected it in a way. And there's so many things I could have done in that election. We debated each other and so forth, and I couldn't bring myself to try to look smart because I respected him and still do, and his family.
Dick is probably the most unique politician that I've ever met. There's something about Dick. He reminds me of when he enters a room. The only other person that I could ever remember that was back when John F. Kennedy was running for president. I was at a function for him, although I was a little younger. But when he entered a room, you could feel that electricity in the room. Dick was the same way. He's the same way today. When Dick gets somewhere, everybody knows the mayor is there. So that's something that you're not taught. That's something that you're born with. It's in your genes. Not every politician has that. And I think that's why Dick is liked by almost everyone. There's very few people that I've ever heard say they don't like Dick Greco. They may disagree with maybe some of his policies or some of his decisions, but most everybody that meets Dick says, you know, he's a good person. He's a good gentleman.
So I ran the second time, and then midway through, DeBartolo came along and offered me a job I basically had to take, because I had 3 kids to educate. That was a hard thing for me to do. I mean, it was probably one of the most difficult things in my life, because I loved politics. I loved what I was doing. I was young. You know, looked like the whole world was out there. Tampa was emerging. We got a lot of good things done. And I left because I didn't want to be indebted to anyone or do some kind of a job that someone ruled my life, and I thought this is the way to do it.
They just developed a relationship, and then as I got a little bit older, our relationship became quite strong. We became over the years like brothers, and I'll say that straight out. I'd call him for advice, and I'd see him often when he'd come to Youngstown, for meetings and for Saturday, updates once in a while and departmental meetings. But there was a very strong bond of closeness between my father and Dick, and it was almost like father-son.
And I never knew at the time, or never really thought that 21 years later I'd have the opportunity to do it again. It just worked out that way. When 21 years went by, Mr. Barlow was getting older. I talked to he and Eddie both, and I said, look, I kind of thinking about maybe going back to Tampa, running for office again. And Mr. Barlow thought politics was kind of screwy. And but strange thing, he said, I understand. He was getting older, and he said, you've got to do what makes you happy. I'm not sure he always did that.
Mayor Greco has advanced the whole concept of the arts and what the arts can do for a community. And I remember when we first talked about the arts, he said, well, you know, Judy, the arts aren't necessarily my thing, but going to all of his mayoral conferences, he clearly understood that the arts are a priority in all the major cities in the country, and he understood that if Tampa was to be a great city, it absolutely had to have a commitment to its arts institutions. So that was very exciting, and I think when you see that as a principle that he has had, and you look what he is achieving, you can see how he really put himself on the line to develop arts institutions here in Tampa.
If I may tell you a little story how I met him in 1971. I was a rookie police officer, and I was protecting a crime scene, and I was told by the sergeant, don't leave, don't let anybody enter this crime scene. So I saw this black car drive up, and this fella, black hair, get out with look like a walkie-talkie in his hand, went underneath the crime scene tape and commenced to go toward the scene. I said, wait a minute, where are you going? Who do you think you are? Get out of here. He turned, looked at me, and he walked back out. My sergeant ran up to me and said, do you know who that was? I said, no, that was the mayor. So that was it. I started shaking. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, he saw that I was in distress, the mayor did, so he came back, introduced himself to me, and he laughed about it. We talked. We've been friends ever since. That's how we met. And he was as concerned about the police then as he is now.
The community investment tax certainly was the deciding feature. He realized that without this tax, police cars wouldn't be running. We wouldn't have the necessary fire equipment for a major city. The children would be on double session. And he knew that he could never sell a city or promote it to its next level without taking care of these basic needs. And after he took care of the basic needs, he certainly has been able to sell the city on a national level.
He is just one of these individuals that radiates around him enthusiasm with his vision, his humor, and the fact that he really, I don't think, has ever met a real stranger. So it really gives you a wonderful feeling to be around him and to work for him and to be involved with his projects. It hasn't changed much from the first time. The hair color, or things like that, but other than that, he's the same, Dick Greco.
We have acquired over 1,100 acres of parks and open space recreational lands at the tune of $90 million. $23 million of that to go to waterfront parks in downtown Tampa, and then another 1,100 acres through the Environmental Land Acquisition Program. So as though many would look as Dick as he came from the Barlow development, I don't think anybody can match the record that he's been able to accomplish as far as open space, the improvements of our park system. It's an incredible accomplishment.
He will always give it in whatever he does. It's very hard to tear him away, whether he's the mayor or not. He will continue to give back to the city.
Well, there you have it, reflections of a man whose mark has been indelible, and reflections from some of those folks who have known him best. These have been exciting times for the city of Tampa, and the city will certainly never be the same. Whoever follows him will certainly make his or her mark, but you've got to agree that Mayor Dick Greco is a tough act to follow. And you know, it's been a thrill for me to be on hand as an observer, whether it was from 970 WFLA's AM Tampa Bay or being a part of the Mayor's Hour each month. These have been the most exciting times for the city of Tampa. The Greco Years.